All right, thank you very much, and glad to be here. Thanks for Professor Baker for inviting me, and we have been talking about this since October last year, so there's a long way to go until April. Luckily, it turns out that I'm on sabbatical this year, so I had a lot of time to think and prepare for these kind of things. So I play multiple roles, so I'm a professor, but I'm also an author and also a data scientist, and I love working with students to build companies. So which I've been doing since my time at Carnegie Mellon, where I learned a lot of the techniques for how to start a company from the research you do. So my most recent thing is co-chair of the AI education, so I'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, so I want to start with this. I think we are all thinking about what AI is and how should we think about it. So AI is nothing, no magic to us, but a lot of people are trying to understand what AI is. Is it some intelligent agent that's out there? Are they as smart as a human? The answer is no, because we don't even understand the human intelligence yet. So we don't even understand, AI is built by humans, so humans can understand how the AI works, but in recent times, we don't understand how the AI makes decisions, which still people are trying to figure out. So when you think about human intelligence, there are two ways to measure that. One is that we measure the intelligence using psychology or behavior. We look at how a human behaves, and then we decide the human is intelligent or not, or they can perform intelligent tasks. On the other hand, in neuroscience, you can put a probe into the brain and see whether there's some part of the brain lights up when something happens. The same thing is true with AI. By the way, the AI stands for artificial intelligence. I'm sure everybody knows it. If you ask Tim Cook, he will say it's Apple intelligence. And if you ask me, I'll say it's an augmented intelligence. Because I see more AI as an augmented intelligence as opposed to some kind of an artificial being out there doing the work for us. So when we think about AI, we should think about AI as a thing that has no consciousness, no empathy, nothing like that. So AI only knows what it knows. AI cannot create new knowledge, although the big tech will say, no, they can create new knowledge. But so far I haven't seen any evidence that the AI can create new knowledge. Humans have to create new knowledge. AI can aggregate knowledge across multiple domains and show you various things. But only the humans are capable of doing this. We have done some tests on that. Like we have looked at some of the unsolved problems from mathematics from 1960s and asked the AI agents to solve it. They couldn't do it because there's nothing like that being done before. So the AI couldn't find that intelligence. So AI doesn't have intelligence. But AI is very good at aggregating information and reasoning. I don't think it's reasoning like the human reasoning. So I think that human reasoning and AI reasoning are two different things in my mind. Because, again, we don't understand how we reason either as humans. So AI is not something we should be afraid of. AI is something we should embrace. Like, it's a new technology, it's going to be a groundbreaking technology that's going to change the world for good. So there are two types of AI that those who are not familiar with it. I used to work with predictive AI a long time. Predictive AI is all about predictions. Essentially, you take a data set and you train a model, and the model will predict something, right? So you refine the model, you keep retraining the model until you get to a certain level of accuracy, say 95% accuracy. So still there's some level 5% of uncertainty in the decision. So that's predictive AI. That's mostly the business world uses predictive AI for optimizing output or productivity or things like that. And then more recently, after ChatGPT, we are talking about this generative AI. That means AI that can create, it seems like it's creating new things. But if you really think about how the large language models work, everybody understands that, at least in the beginning, they work like predicting the next word. They understand the natural language very well. That's the difference there. They understand when you say something to it, it can understand not the context so much. It can understand something about that sentence and look for the information that it can begin to construct something. Like, so it'll put together one word, then look at the next word that's the most probability word, and keep doing it. So in the beginning, when the 2022, we started working with the large language models, it couldn't understand things like if you put chicken on the table and cut the legs, it couldn't understand whether you're talking about cutting the legs of the table, cutting your legs, or cutting the chicken's leg, right? So it couldn't understand that. So this is the kind of intelligence that we had at the time. But now it's getting better. Even now, there are a lot of cases of where ChatGPT cannot answer questions that requires some level of understanding of the context and the world around it. And it doesn't understand that. So there's nothing to be afraid of, I think. So we should think about AI as the next calculator, or the search engine, or the spell checker, or the things like that. I mean, I think it's much more powerful than that. But they have all helped us be better, right? Nobody adds anymore. That's not important, right? I don't know. So I think I'm a big believer that the AI is not going to hinder creativity unless we allow the AI to do it. Even myself, I use AI a lot in my job. But sometimes I say, I'm lazy, I'm going to do this. Now I suddenly realize I'm not thinking anymore, right? So I have to intentionally pull back and think about where should I fit into this whole thing. I cannot outsource my work to AI. That's the truth. So that's, as long as we understand that, we don't outsource our work to AI, and AI does all the things. Because if you do, then you work like a robot, right? Robot will take your job. That means you will not have a job. If you outsource everything you do to AI, you won't have a job. Same thing I keep telling my students, don't learn like a robot. Don't try to memorize all the things I said and then repeat back. I don't need that. That's not important. So you shouldn't learn like a robot. So this is a great chance to really rethink the education. I think the jobs of the future will ask us to be more human, not less. That's the way we want to think about it, because the AI is not human. So we have to really bring our humanity out to go forward. All right, so let me say a few things about NJAI Hub. It was launched in April 2024. We had a very big community. I don't know if Dr. Pelson was there or not, but there were a lot of presidents there, and a lot of the CEOs were there. There were about 300 people who attended, and Governor Murphy and the people from Microsoft talked about it. I had the chance to talk about some of the things I'm passionate about, like computational thinking, AI thinking, things I've been thinking about for a long time. So our goal is to really work with all the New Jersey higher education community to, the hub will become sort of like this neutral thing, although it started with Princeton, but it is trying to get away from Princeton in some ways and say, no, this is for all of us. Rutgers, TCNJ, all of them will be part of this. This is all for all of us. And then in October last year, we organized the NJAI Hub Education Workforce. I think Professor Baker was there. And I organized them with Margaret Mazzoni, who is a principal faculty, and Patricia Morelli, who is a chair at the Keene University. So that went well. So that's the AI Hub. AI Hub is a lot more than just education and workforce training, but I think that's the most important component of AI Hub. There's also foundational research. So if you go to ai.princeton.edu, you can see some of that, which is like people looking for the next ChatGPT kind of a technology. And also there's the entrepreneurship, which is to promote more businesses to start, AI-related business start in New Jersey. The idea, the Governor Murphy's idea is that New Jersey has been a leader in innovation, and we should rethink that because the Boston and Silicon Valley and other places have taken those things, right? So it's a common mission for all of us to train the next generation of NJ workforce. There's a big role to play by the NJ universities. TCNJ, Rutgers, there are a lot of the state universities, I think, have a much larger role to play than private universities like Princeton. Although Princeton is instrumental in establishing it and supporting it, but it's going to benefit a lot of the other universities. One of the big problems that we are dealing with in the AI age is how do we meet the scale? Because we have to change very fast. I don't think we have 50 years to change. We have 10 years to change. So we got to change fast. So in order to change fast, we got to figure out how to build tools. I'll talk about some of the things we're doing at Rutgers. And also build resources for everybody to use. So for example, we'll be promoting AI repository, AI for all type of, course where the contribution will come from the community, from the community colleges and the universities will contribute to this. This is something that doesn't happen in education much. We don't really talk to each other too much. So now we have this centralized place that we can do it. And then for people who want to learn about AI, the training courses, and then create an ecosystem for startups, internships, and apprenticeships. Now these are happening in all the community colleges and universities, but we need to more collaborative effort to make it accelerate these things. But the other problems are the training the next generation of AI tech professionals. For example, Rutgers graduates about 800 computer science majors, which I think maybe half of them are good to be very AI tech professionals, which requires a higher mathematics and statistics and computer science knowledge to be an AI tech professional. So in other words, in the future, it won't be just the programming. You're not going to be hired for a programming job. You're going to be hired for programming AI agents or something related to AI. And then the more important thing is there's a large group of what we call AI boosted professionals. That means all of us have to be AI boosted. I'm AI boosted because I'm using a lot of the AI tools to build my content or manage my classes and things like that and do my research or whatever I need to do. So right now the partners are the Princeton, all of these things. CoreWeave is a more recent GPU support company. They went for an IPO recently. That's a New Jersey company, so government is very supportive of that to see them grow to a multi-billion-dollar company in the state of New Jersey. Okay, where we are. Looking at where we came from, that's the evolution of the web. We look at the evolution of the web from 1990s to 2000. So you can see that this web revolution added a lot of value was created in the market. So we added a lot that if you rejected the web, imagine what would happen, right? We wouldn't create this. And I was involved, I was at the Carnegie Mellon at the time. There was a CMU company called TechCentric, which built a publishing framework for textbooks and eventually was sold to Pelson Publishing. So I was very curious to see what the web is going to do, right? So what the web did was to really increase the accessibility of everything, right? So I remember growing up in Sri Lanka, I used to go to American Center to read anything. Right? Because we don't have anything, so you have to go to American Center to read the most latest thing. Now when I go to Sri Lanka, all the kids know even more than I know because they have the web. So they know a lot of things that are happening here. So there's no, all you need is the curiosity. you look at the jobs lost, there were a lot of jobs lost, like it says here that maybe about 20 million jobs were lost or repurposed. But there were a lot of jobs created. We never heard of an influencer, right, so before the web. Those kind of things. These are new jobs, and web designers and programmers. And so these jobs, people never imagined that there would be someone called influencer who can make money by being an influencer all day. I don't understand the influencer job for myself, but there's such thing, right? So we all know that. So those are the jobs created. All right, so I want to talk about the sort of this skill in general about called AI thinking, which is not just for us, the computer scientists, it's for anyone. So if you look at the historical progression of knowledge, you can see that even like 35 before the Common Era, like 20,000 years before the Common Era, we were doing counting. I think counting was the one we were doing first, even before the language came. And then around, like, I think this says like maybe, so this is earliest true writings came around maybe 4,000 years ago, before the Common Era. And then we started with the arithmetic, we developed the number system and started to do mathematics, right? And then we had the reading, writing, and arithmetic from that point on. So we've been doing this for a while until the web revolution happened, or the technology revolution happened. So we didn't have machines, so we had to learn to read, write, and count, and do math in order to be a useful, productive citizen. Now, I was invited to give a talk at Meta last year, and I went and did this, and there were a lot of faculty there. I said, I think reading is dead, right? So I make a controversial statement usually to get the people fired up, right? So why do we read anymore? I mean, we are complaining about people not reading scores are down, and young people are not interested in reading. I think the problem is we are thinking that the young people will do the same things we did. Take a book and read and try to learn. There's no need for that anymore. So there are a lot of other ways that we can rethink reading. Reading is still important because reading, if you think about what the reading gives you, it gives you to recognize patterns and context clues, inference, critical thinking. These are all very important things. But I think I get very similar experience when I listen to a podcast with very little effort on my part to read the words on a printed book. So I find myself not reading much anymore, although I'm an author, right? I shouldn't say that. I actually did research on reading comprehension and published things many years ago, like how people comprehend reading. But I'm not saying it's totally useless. I think what we should do is we should use AI to improve the traditional reading. Like we should provide a tutor, individualized tutor for students to work with. That's been one of the problems because students don't know how to read. And there's nobody to teach them how to read. And the teacher has like 60 students, and the teacher can't spend time with every one of the students. So instead we should allow the AI to do that, some of that help. That might be very fun, the students working with an AI, arguing with the AI, and doing kind of stuff, right? So I hope some people will create these things. And I think we should also expand the definition of reading. Reading is not about reading the text on a book. It's about watching a video and comprehending it, listening to a podcast and comprehending it. I think all those media gives you the same level of expertise that we need. And the world has moved on, because if you look at the internet traffic, 70 to 80% of the traffic is all videos. So a lot of people are watching videos. Right? And then if you look at writing, then I think writing is more important than reading. At least if you ask me, right? Because I still want to write. I enjoy writing. But sometimes I feel myself lazy asking ChatGPT to write for me, but then I realize It doesn't sound really good, right? It doesn't sound like me. Right? So I need to bring my experience into this writing and change. That's okay. So so in fact, there were a lot of research on writing, like over 6 years of research, but they couldn't help. There was no scalable solution to teaching writing. So my former colleagues at Carnegie Mellon, they actually came up with this new kind of writing tool, which allowed the students which guides the student using AI to preserve the human authorship by limiting new content. Because usually what the students do is they go and say, okay, here's the topic, can you write me something and then submit it? Right now and then we have to try really hard to find out whether it was written by AI or not. I know a lot of my colleagues who worry about this all the time. I say, don't worry about it, let's change the way we think about this, right? So what it does is carefully guide the AI, because the students, I think the biggest problem for a student is if you give a blank sheet of paper and say, write about this, they have no idea where to start. So at least AI can say, okay, why don't you think about these things? And then, let me give you some early expansion of these things. Limit the output. Because if you ask an AI a question, it'll give you like 2 pages of output, which you don't really need. So the ideal thing would be to constrain the AI output and get them to write more. So, plus their technology, they have technology that can look at a writing and say, is there more empathy in here? Is this consciousness in this writing? Is this written by a robot? So it'll try to advise people to change it because it sounds very robotic. It may sound good, but it's very robotic, essentially, right? So that's one aspect of it. Now, then I'll go to the new skill called computational thinking. I'm sure our computer science faculty here probably knows what this is. In fact, I was at CMU and a former chair of CMU computer science called Jeanette Wing is the one who came up with this notion of computational thinking. So the question that she asked was that, why not, us computer scientists, we use a lot of interesting tools to solve problems. So why can't others use that? Right? That's the idea of computational thinking. So one example I give is like loading a dishwasher. So when my wife tells me to load the dishwasher, I say it takes 10 minutes, I don't want to spend the time. So you have to finish all the rinsing and give it to me, then I'll figure out an algorithm to load the dishwasher. She thinks I'm nerdy, but that's okay. But that's the way to do it, because if you think about that, if you just try to load the dishwasher one dish at a time, it takes a lot more time than sorting it, figuring out where things should go. That's a lot more efficient. So if I'm loading for 10 minutes, I want to make it 5 minutes. Because that's how I think about a computer scientist, right? So computer scientists say, okay, this program runs in 5 minutes. That's not good enough. Let's make it 2 minutes. How do I do that? Well, I have to increase the memory, maybe find a new algorithm to make it faster, and so on. So that's what we do as computer scientists. We try to make it more and more efficient. So why can't we do that with our regular jobs, right? So even life, the things that we do daily. So if you think about that, I think that kind of thing really makes a lot of sense. That's the computational thinking part. Now we come to AI thinking. So we're still working on defining what AI thinking is. I haven't come up with a real definition of this. In fact, even Jeanette Wing struggled a lot to explain computational thinking. People ask, okay, I want to develop a course, how do I do this? She didn't have any ideas. She has this high-level idea, and she said the others have to think about this. So what is involved in, what's the difference now from the traditional computing to AI computing? Now in traditional computing, programming, this is what people do. We have a data, and then we sit down and write a program. We come up with the algorithm. We write the program. We say, this is how we're going to solve it. And then it gives an output. The nice thing here is this program can be tested and make sure that it's correct and it's working, it's deterministic, right? It's always give the same output for the same input, and so on. But when it comes to AI, training, it's a very different model. Now, it's not the human who writes the algorithm, it's the machine who writes the algorithm. So how does the machine write the algorithm? It takes the data from the environment, and we specify, in some cases, what the output would be. So here's the data, here's the output. Can you write a program to give this output if I give this data? But that program is not a deterministic program. That means we cannot guarantee that it'll give the same output at the same time. Right? And so there's a level of uncertainty in this output. So the good example is that self-driving cars, like there are a lot of examples of Tesla self-driving cars stop in the middle of the highway when you see a stop sign on a billboard. Right? So it doesn't have the context. So many examples, it's running through a transparent glass on the road. And if a person is trying to cross the road, this self-driving car has to make a decision about the intent of the person. The person is waiting to cross the road. What is the probability that the person will cross the road? So based on that probability, the car can slow down and be prepared. If the person comes into the frame, it can stop. And that's what we do when we drive. So essentially, AI is learning from the human behavior. In fact, when they train these things, I've seen at CMU, a lot of things that they go around, a human will drive around and run into all kinds of things, and the computer is collecting all the data and trying to learn from that data about how the human is behaving. And then learning from data is very important because that's the key thing. So data is the beginning. It's a data-centric kind of a model. And instead of human-computer interaction, now we have the human-AI interaction. Like when you talk to ChatGPT, that's what you do. You're interacting with an AI to get a job done. And but there are a lot of other things that come into play now. Bias and the ethics of AI and the impact of AI, right? So the bias is very clear. I think those who have used ChatGPT or something will realize that if you ask it to create a picture, you will likely see the picture very biased towards the training data that was trained on. And if you ask a question about something from a model, it's biased toward the things that it's trained on. But it doesn't understand the other group who is not part of this thing. So we have to teach the students the responsibility that they have to build things that can include everyone, or focus on them, right? Not just on one set of data. So these are really important things. The bias. I don't really work on this area much, but there are a lot of people work on it. The bias of AI and how to deal with it. All right. So we have to change, obviously, and in my mind, I think this starts from very young age and begin to change again. I'm not working on K through 12 type of things. I'm not a specialist in that, but I think it should start very, very low grades. We have to think about how we train people to work with AI, right? So for that, I always work with AI to understand how do I work with AI, and then I try to teach my students how to work with AI. That's important, because unless you learn how to work with AI, you're not going to be able to teach other people how to work with AI without losing our creative ability. That's what we don't want. And so the changing for the AI is very, very important. So you can think about AI and society, data for social good. I think they have very good titles for courses that we should be creating through the hub or through our partners here, TCNG or Rutgers. That's very important. So again, going back to reading, how should we think about foundational skills? I go back and say, well, we need personalized reading paths, comprehension, multimodal literacy, critical AI. Writing-wise, we want the AI to be a partner in writing, not replacing us in writing. That's very important. And also writing different medias, because we should expand the definition of writing the writing to be more than just writing text on a word. But writing is more important because writing is more important than reading, that's what I said, right? Because in order to create a podcast or in order to create a video, you have to write first. You have to write, you have to explain this in words, and then only it turns into a podcast or to a video or something like that. So therefore writing is very important so that AI will never write the way you want it. I don't think because it doesn't understand your context, it doesn't understand how you think. So therefore whatever it writes, it's very robotic and very context independent, essentially. In mathematics, again, we have to go more from just memorizing formulas, manual calculations. We know before I read the history of calculators, and then there was a lot of objection to bringing calculus into mathematics education. So we're going to lose that ability to add and multiply and do. But I think now we don't talk about it. We all agree that calculator is fine. But the only problem is if you don't use the calculator right, it can be very dangerous. Because when I ask my students, when you type the numbers into the calculator and you get an answer, do you accept it? They say, of course we accept it, right? But then I ask the question, how do you know you put the input correctly? They don't know that. So they don't think about it. So you should at least try it twice. It's the same way we should think about the AI. We should use AI as a tool, but you should not trust it. It's the same thing. You should never trust a calculator because the first time you do it, you can do it multiple times and then you get the same answer. Or you have a sense of, if I multiply these two numbers, I should get an answer about 5 digits. But I've got 2 digits, so what happened? Right? Those kind of approximation thinking is much more important to students to realize that I got something wrong. It must be something wrong, not with the calculator, but with you. That you gave the wrong input. All right, so the big question I think we are dealing with at the NJAI Hub is that how do we handle the scale? Because there's a large number of people who need to move into the AI age. But we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough programs, we don't have enough courses, right, to teach them. So we have to think about how to expand this, because if you think about all the people who will have to move, people who are working right now, who need to learn the AI tools to keep their job. Because you will lose the job but you will lose the job to a person who knows AI and your job. So because they can do it better. So everybody has to be either upskilled or reskilled. Right? You're going from a history major to AI, some kind of an AI role. That you can do that. I think all of us are very smart in our own ways, and you can all do that. You don't have to be a computer scientist to do it. So at Rutgers, so this is what I've been fighting with this forever. I've been saying traditional models are useless. If I go back to my own experience, when I started teaching at CMU, I was teaching like 25 students in algorithm class. Then I joined Princeton, I had 200 students. And then I went to Rutgers, I have now 500 students. Right? So my lectures are like 500 students, my lecture I teach. So I have like 15 TAs and all the staff that I have to manage. I'm like a CEO, really. I don't know any one of the students. If they ask me for a recommendation letter, I don't know, do I know you? Did you take my class? But I think the traditional model of like giving a lecture, I love giving lectures because I like to perform, right? And which I think lecture is one of those things where you get to act in a way that you try to communicate something. But if I think that I can put 500 students in a classroom and teach them all the things I know in 80 minutes, you're wrong. The research tells us that only about 10 to 15% of people actually understand what you're talking about. Right? So they never get it. They come and they sit through this, and we are wasting a lot of time. I'm bringing 500 people to listen to me, and majority of them actually just go home without knowing what it is. So the idea would be to really change that. And we have to rethink. This is a great opportunity to do that because we are entering a new era. Traditional education probably is not the right way to think about this, right? So we need to think about sort of like how do we spend the class time and the out of class time. Now there's a model called flipped learning. Some of you may be familiar with it. And the flipped learning is about watching videos and then getting prepared and coming to class. The problem is nobody watched videos before the class. Right? That doesn't happen. I tried it at Princeton too, right? So it doesn't happen. So you have to really motivate them first. When they come to class, the class time you have with them is very precious. You have 80 minutes with them to motivate them to do the things they need to do. You don't need to talk about things they can find on YouTube. And that's not important, but you can think about the high ideas. I think you can think about all the things. It takes a little bit of time to get used to this kind of model because if I'm a professor starting, I won't be able to do this. I'll be very nervous. Now I can do it, but I think after about 5 years of experience, you should be able to do it. Right? So we think about how you could spend the class time. Conceptual guidance. So we do a lot of examples, or we try use cases, the recent updates, what happens in your field. So this is also fun because you get to keep up with your field, and you get to talk about it in the class, and then you leave the rest of the instructions to recorded videos and explanations and other things. But they can come back and ask you questions in the next class because they're very likely to watch the videos after you talk about it, not before you talk about it. So that's why the flipped learning, I think, doesn't work. Okay, so at Princeton and Rutgers, we tried this platform called Qubits AI, which is a platform that allows the students to, what we do is that we have... Okay, so that's... I think so. Yeah, so this is, I think what you're seeing here is the platform that we built a custom AI agent called QGPT to this platform. So the students, when they're watching this video, they can ask questions like this. So they're really communicating with the AI, but the AI understands the context. That means you're talking about this video, right? So that's what I'm going to talk to you about the video. So it's going to tell you something about this. We also try to, I can show you, but probably have, how much time I have left?
Well, in this case, yeah,
15 minutes. So I don't have time, but I can tell you, like, I also type in things like, I don't feel good today, what should I do? They say, well, you know what, I'm a computer science assistant. If you're not feeling good, you should probably talk to your instructor or something, right? Which is a good thing. Let's say, go talk to a human. I don't have an advice for you. Right. So this is what it does, and what it does is to organize your entire course. So, and then it has questions and other things, and then people can do it. People can work on it. In fact, we built this platform. I won't talk about that because I don't have enough time. But you can see that it has a transcript that's searchable and all. So I want to talk about next the reducing the educator workload. I don't think all of us are in education because we love our jobs. Right? I can be making a lot more money in the industry, but I like my flexibility and my freedom to innovate and do things without worrying about losing money. Right? So I will take some risk with my students, but I won't take too much of a risk, and I can do that. That's why we are here. But we also have a lot of work to do, because I think regardless of the size of the class, we are very busy, right? Whether we are teaching 3 classes or 1 class, doesn't matter. We are very busy with all kinds of things. So there are a lot of things AI can help do that. So I thought about how can the AI reduce our workload? So one part is automated grading, which we have been doing for more than 10 years now. Because if you have 500 students, there's no way we can manually grade everyone's work. In fact, AI is much better at grading than humans in large programs. Because we have autograders where we have all the test cases. We have like 100 test cases. You write a program, and it'll run through 100 test cases and tell the students what test case they didn't pass. So they will tell you exactly what the test case is, so the students can go back, redo it, and submit it again and see if they can pass the test case. So that's kind of grading. I mean, that can be done with computer science. I don't know how to do that with other domains, which up to the domain specialists. So I think the grading is something we should automate for sure, but with some level of human component. Because I don't think we want the students to say, oh, professor never grades, it's always the AI grading us. We don't want them to say, but I think we know from our experience, students are very happy when they get the feedback very instantly from a grader. Otherwise, they wait for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and by the time it comes, they don't really care about your feedback, they care about your grade. That's it. They never come back to ask, why did you write this, right? So they never come back. We know that. I mean, we all been in education for a while. The other thing I find very fascinating is the content curation and generation. It doesn't mean that we outsource our job to AI. We are still the drivers of the knowledge, right? The way we understand our students and understand human. But it can do a lot of things. I find that I take slide deck from 10 years from now, 10 years before, right? And then I can change it. I can add new things. I can add more engaging things into the thing by asking AI to help me think about this. Otherwise, it will take weeks and a lot of hours and hours to think, right? Because we don't have that time. So now AI can help me with that. The other thing is the real-time tutoring support. So one project we are doing this year with Tomas, we presented this work at the American Association of Artificial Intelligence, is that we are creating a bunch of smart agents for course management. So there's a moderator bot here, and the students can ask a question based on the question. The question is a natural language process we use to understand what the question is about. So the student question may be a code debugging question. I want to debug something. So we direct that students to this code debugging bot. The advantage is that this bot only knows how to debug code. If you ask this bot, how long is the exam, it doesn't know that, right? Or will the exam be hard, it doesn't know that. And then we also have like an office hour bot who might know a lot of the logistical things, like how long is the exam, what topics will be covered. For that, we actually train before the exam. The instructor need to input the exam, the actual exam, and then some metadata about the exam. That's all the instructor has to do. Then the bot learns about the exam, and the bot then creates like a framework to answer questions related to the exam without giving the exam questions out, right? So that's the key thing. So you try to learn the ideas, the topics. You can easily learn the topics from an exam. You can give ChatGPT your exam and say, what are the topics covered? And you create another question like this, you can do that. And so we are using a lot of techniques. It's a very long process to do this. So we're building these small bots one at a time. So what we want is an army of agents who are helping with the scaling and reducing the workload. Eventually, we are hoping there was an administrator bot who can do all the things like checking with if my TAs graded the assignments. Right now, I have to manually check it and see did they do their job because I have to release the grades. But before they do it, I cannot release the grades. But there are other things that I'm now working on. We're now working on. I'm sure there are people who will start working on it. I think this will be the biggest one, which would change the education for good, which is like saying every student is not the same. We treat all the students the same when they come to class. They all have very different skills and ideas. So we should allow them to take their own path. Now maybe the AI can help that. So because we have been thinking about personalization learning for many years, right? Decades, about how do we personalize learning. That's a very hard problem to solve. Because unless that bot understands you, it's hard to personalize the learning. So we were jokingly thinking about, what would the future kids will do. Maybe every time the future kid will come, they'll have their own little bot that they can train as they grow. They learn more and more about you, and they become your partner, right? And sort of like a really weird kind of ideas you think about, I don't know, right? So, but why not? Because I can't train my bot anymore, I'm too old for that, but the kids can grow up with a bot. Bot also learns with the kid, and bot helps the kids, think, and those are the kind of things. Okay, so the other thing we are doing at Rutgers is the platform called CodeBench. We built this, so you can, if you go to my website, you will find a link to this. So the idea is that our data science AI, we have a big demand for these courses. So we need a good workflow to handle the volume. So if you think about 500 students, 8 assignments, and we have 4,000 things to grade. And these things usually takes about 15 minutes to grade if a human grader does it. So you can do the math. It takes so much time, and we don't have that time to do it. So what this does is it gives you a workflow which you don't find in Canvas or other places. If you use Canvas, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a nice repository, but that's it. But I know some people use Canvas better than me. I do. So instructor fulfill the assignments, set the due dates. With that, we can also do late days and other kinds of things. We can set it up automatically, so they don't have to ask for extensions or anything. Complete the assignment. AI is built into this platform. You can actually, if you go to codebench.us, you can get this platform where you have the AI integrated. So that means I encourage students to use AI to do the assignment. In fact, I use the platform in the class to show students how to use AI to solve a problem. That's the best way for them to learn. I teach them how to do it. And I remember a while ago when I was teaching 10, 15, 20 years ago, I forgot some syntax for a programming assignment. So I said, I forgot it, I have to go to the web and find this instruction and write it. And the students wrote in my evaluations, the professor didn't know Java, right? And he had to go to the web to find the Java syntax. But, when you think about it, that's kind of crazy because, I know Java, right? But I forgot. I don't need to remember all of these things. That's not important. Important thing is I know how to solve the problem using the tools. The other thing we did was this is one of the other projects that we're working on called Smart Slides. In fact, before I came, so the Smart Slides, again, you can go, what this does is, I think what we're trying to do is to make the content creation much easier. So you have a lecture ready for your class. You put this lecture into Smart Slides, it creates a video for you. You can edit if you want, you can edit the transcript. AI will create the first iteration of the slides, but you always have to edit it. And then you recreate it. The idea is that you can actually use your AI voice. So you can submit a voice sample to this program. It'll learn how you speak, and it can create the video in your AI voice. I'll show you if you want. I have my own AI voice here. In fact, all the videos I do, I use my AI voice because I don't like my own voice. Right? Because I don't want to listen to my own voice, but I love listening to my AI voice. Right? Because it's not me. And it's kind of like me, but it's not me. Right? So it's good. And so it's really, I think you can see that we submit in fact, before I came, I took my talk and I gave it to Smart Slides and it created a video for me because I'm going to give this talk. Right? What am I going to say at this talk? So AI created a video and I listened to that video driving here. And that's how I prepared for this talk. Right? And I save a lot of time. But obviously AI wasn't, maybe 50% of the ideas from AI I used, but I'm sure I gave a very different lecture here. I didn't memorize it. Right? I didn't want to memorize it, I just wanted to understand how should you present each of these slides. You need to understand what's on the slide and expand it and create a script for you. So why not use these kind of tools? because students love, see, that's how it created it is, right? That's my lecture. So you can see that how I did this, right? So I use AI to help me with giving this lecture. So impact of AI in workforce development. So we know there's going to be an impact for sure. The jobs are going to be transformed for sure. Some people will lose jobs unless they are willing to change, and some people are not prepared to change, right? And there will be a lot of new skills in demand. Data literacy, understanding data, understanding how to clean data, how to visualize data, how to model data, and so on. And reskilling and education and training disruption will happen because the continuous education will be accessible to everyone in some ways because there's AI. So some of the smart people will say, I don't have to go to a university to learn anything. I can just type into ChatGPT, learn. ChatGPT will teach you everything you want to know. But the problem is maybe about 5% of the population can do that. Others need a guidance to get there, right? So the people who can learn without a teacher will learn anyway. New occupations will emerge. I don't know what they are, but they will come. But I have no idea. Widen the digital divide and amplify bias. So these are some of the challenges that we have. But the key message is that life will move forward. It's not going to be like everyone's going to lose jobs. In fact, Bill Gates came and said like a few months ago, we don't need teachers or doctors in 5 years. But the reality is Bill Gates has never been a teacher or a doctor. So how do you know? And so I think there were a lot of predictions like that before. They say you don't need radiologists. In 2012, they said that machines are very good at reading X-rays and detecting cancers and other things. But radiologists are still here because they adopted that human component is still important. But they can. So I don't believe in all this job replacement, all of those things. I think, but it's also up to us because we should leave it to the big tech. Because if you talk to the big tech, if you listen to big tech, they'll say, well, there won't be any programmers. Well, true to some extent, but there will be a new kind of programmers. That's what you should say, right? So we have to train those new kind of programmers who can teach you data, think about data, and think like AI. So that's because I'm a big believer that the big tech, it's very dangerous if you leave our futures with big tech. But they're going to figure out what's their goal is to reduce the cost. So cost reduction is making robots. And if you leave it to them, they're not going to be very helpful. So we have to push and say no, right? We will learn these things and we'll be part of the workforce going forward. All right, so here's the prediction. Again, this is not me, it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Thinks that we're going to lose like 90 million jobs will be lost in the next 10 years. But every revolution has created new jobs, so there's no reason to think that we won't have new jobs. In fact, most of the jobs are going to be AI boosted. Everyone will learn how to work with AI, make an AI partner, and learn that. So and then jobs we cannot even imagine today. I have no idea what those jobs are. They'll happen in 10 years. We'll see jobs that we never thought of. Because AI will create a new economy, and that economy will create new jobs. All right, so this is more detailed statistics. Software developers, they think about 30% increase in the next 10 years, which is substantially lower than the prediction for the last 10 years. So this means that we don't need as many software developers as we had before. But it's not like computer science programs are going to die. I think computer science programs are going to get new kind of students, so we train new ways of thinking about how we train them. Make computer science more AIX kind of things, like AI and some other discipline would be good. So these are the impact on certain things. Again, I don't think even they know How this will turn out to be, we don't know. Some people predict that there'll be a lot more AI programming jobs, so there'll be a big demand for computer science, just like what's happening now. We don't really know, but we know that computer scientists will be required and the other people will learn how to work with AI. So in summary, learning from computational thinking to AI thinking, that was the title of my talk. So we go from algorithmic thinking to learning from data. We go from very deterministic programs to reasoning under uncertainty. We have to know our programs are with some uncertain. The step-by-step control flow we did with the regular programming will be now more probabilistic modeling and prediction. Outcomes are not deterministic anymore, they are adaptive, non-deterministic. Instead of code-centric mindset that we have to write code, we have human-AI collaboration mindset. Emphasis on correct output, emphasis on the appropriate ethical. This is something I've worked on many, many years to make sure the plane is not going to crash because you had a bug in the program. But now, there are still certain things like mission critical software need to be not written by AI, because I think that would be really bad. It's like self-driving cars. We don't want the self-driving planes in the air, right? Building software tools, building intelligent agents. So everyone will be building, I think in my mind, will be building small things to help you become more automated. In other words, think about automating every part of your job that you don't want to do. Right? I can tell you 50% of my job I don't want to do. Right? So I should automate that and then find new ways to innovate within my job. So key questions for academia. Obviously, we're going to have an impact of AI in education. And I think there's a big effort at Rutgers and other places to think about how to update CS curriculum. If programming is not the right thing to teach anymore, but programming is still important, like logical thinking is still important, maybe it's the computational thinking, and maybe using AI to produce code where you don't have to write. Because I think the new language for coding is English. You write your entire program in English, but you should know how to debug it. Because if you don't know how to debug it, AI is not going to help you. So that's the key thing. And then there's also a big challenge here, that how do we integrate AI into each course. Now, this programming is dead. It's not, I don't really believe 100%, but programming in a different way. Programming evolved from what we call programming now. So it's not just coding camps and other things. Coding camps should teach more thinking skills, critical skills, as opposed to learning Java syntax. Who cares about Java syntax? Right? I don't really need to know, because I code with like 5 different languages. Now I can just ask ChatGPT to help me take my Java code and convert that to Python. It does a great job doing that, right? So there's no need for me to learn all these coding platforms. So all I need to know is how to think. So with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Right, so, sorry, let me go ahead and grab